Ali could have ended this fight in that moment, but he had one question to ask first. Ernie Terrell came into this fight as a real heavyweight champion. He had held the WBA title for 2 years, defending it against George Chuvalo and Doug Jones, and he carried wins over Cleveland Williams, Zora Fawley, and a young Bob Foster on his record. At 6'6" with an 82-inch reach, he was one of the longest heavyweights of his era, and he built his whole game around it. The promoters called this the Battle of Champions, but for Terrell, it turned out to be something else entirely. This fight had been building towards something else entirely, and the name had everything to do with it. 3 years before that night in Houston, Cassius Clay had beaten Sonny Liston, joined the Nation of Islam, and walked away from the name he was born with. He said Cassius Clay was his slave name, a name given to his ancestors by the people who owned them, not one he had chosen. From that point forward, he was Muhammad Ali, and he made clear that anyone who kept using the other name was making a deliberate choice about more than what to call him. Most of the press kept using it anyway. The New York Times maintained an official policy of calling him Clay. Sports writers on both sides of the Atlantic followed. In the language of 1967, refusing the name was nearly as common as refusing his title, and Ali had come to see both refusals as the same act. Floyd Patterson had done it before Terrell. In 1965, Patterson spent the entire build-up to their fight calling him Clay publicly, arguing that Ali's religion was damaging the black cause. Ali won in 12 rounds, and many ringside felt he prolonged the punishment deliberately, picking Patterson apart round after round, asking the question between combinations. Patterson eventually said the name. Terrell had watched all of that happen and still kept calling him Clay. The two men were actually supposed to fight in March of 1966 until Ali's draft status was reclassified and he was suddenly eligible to be called into the Vietnam War. When asked about it, he said what became the most famous line of his life outside a ring. "I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong." The Illinois authorities declared the fight illegal. It took almost a year and a move to Texas before they finally shared a ring. The confrontation that made February 6th inevitable came at a promotional event in late December 1966 at Madison Square Garden. Terrell was in the middle of an interview and kept using the birth name, and Ali interrupted him. He asked why Terrell kept saying Clay when he knew his right name. Terrell answered the same way he had been answering for months. "I met you as Cassius Clay. I'll leave you as Cassius Clay." Something in Ali shifted. He told Terrell it took an Uncle Tom to keep using a slave name, and Terrell, who was a proud man with his own sense of what he was owed, leaned forward and said Ali had no right to say that to him. Ali swung at him open-handed. They had to be separated. Ali looked straight at Terrell and said, "My name is Muhammad Ali, and you will announce it right there in the center of that ring if you won't do it now." Terrell didn't move. He kept saying Clay. There was no window left after that. They met on February 6th, 1967, in front of 37,321 people at the Houston Astrodome, with every version of the heavyweight title on the line. Ali had told Terrell on television exactly what was coming. The question was whether he'd meant it. The first 2 rounds looked like Terrell's size might be a real problem. He used his height and that long jab to keep Ali at distance, and he was coming forward with it, pressing, setting the terms. For 6 minutes, the taller man was controlling the space and making Ali work to find angles. Then the 3rd round began, and Ali found something specific. He started going to Terrell's left eye with short combinations, landing in the same spot again and again until the eye started to close. Within a few rounds, Terrell was working through one good eye, half blind against the fastest heavyweight in the world. Terrell said afterward it wasn't clean, that Ali had grabbed him in a clinch and raked the eye along the top rope on purpose. Larry Merchant, at ringside, wrote that Ali used the thumb of his glove like a pitchfork. Ali denied all of it. What's not in dispute is that a fractured bone was found under that eye after the fight, along with a damaged retina, and that from round 3 on, Ali knew exactly which side of Terrell's face to aim at. Through the middle rounds, Terrell kept pressing forward on one good eye, taking Ali's combinations without going anywhere. And then, somewhere around the 6th, he landed a right hand that backed Ali hard into the ropes, enough that the broadcast called out, "Clay is hurt." Not Ali, Clay. Even describing the fight, the announcer reached for the old name without thinking. Terrell had his best moment, and the man calling it used exactly the word that had made this night what it was. The 7th round is where the contest ended. Even though the fight had 8 more rounds remaining, Ali landed a left hook that sent Terrell stumbling into the ropes, and followed it immediately with both hands, more than a dozen punches in a few seconds, hunting the finish. Terrell stayed up, But his legs were different from that point, uncertain and slow, and everyone in the Astrodome could read what was coming. What Ali did in round 8 is why this fight still gets talked about. Terrell was half blind by then, bleeding from his nose and mouth, barely locating Ali between exchanges, and Ali had everything he needed to end it. He chose not to. Instead, he settled into a rhythm, a controlled burst of punches, then a pause, leaning in close enough that Terrell could hear him clearly. And in each of those pauses, he asked the same question: "What's my name?" He asked it again and again, with Terrell's blood across his chest and 37,000 people on their feet, demanding the answer out loud between every combination. Terrell never gave it. He absorbed what came, stayed upright, and if he said anything at all, it wasn't Muhammad Ali. When the bell ended the round, Ali kept talking. Referee Harry Kessler stepped between them. Ali turned to face the crowd. The reaction from writers the next day was immediate and unsparing. Sports Illustrated ran the fight under the headline, "Cruel Ali with all the skills." The Daily Telegraph called it the nastiest display of his celebrated career. The charge was that Ali hadn't simply beaten Terrell. He had chosen, round by round, to humiliate him in front of a national audience, because he had the power to do it and nobody was going to make him stop. The other reading, which has grown louder in the years since, is that Terrell knew exactly what he was doing every time he said Clay. He had watched Patterson pay for the same thing 2 years earlier and kept doing it anyway. In 1967, with the name dispute playing out in every newspaper in the country, refusing to say Muhammad Ali was a statement about religion, about identity, about whether a black man had the right to choose what he was called. Ali answered it the only way he had available to him inside that ring. In the corner between rounds, the man working to put Terrell back together was Joe Louis, the former heavyweight champion of the world, now on the wrong side of the outcome. He looked at the closed eye and the 7 rounds still remaining, and there was nothing to say that would change any of it. Referee Harry Kessler let it run. In that era, a man who stayed on his feet and kept throwing was left to take whatever came, and Terrell, to his lasting credit, never stopped throwing.
Summation, it may be said, George, this fight was not.
The final 7 rounds were a question of endurance. Ali picked him apart almost at will, moving and scoring freely, while Terrell walked forward on legs that had nothing left. In the 13th, George Chavallo on commentary said Terrell was somehow still there and that Ali was beginning to look tired. But Ali wasn't looking for a knockout. Somewhere back in the 8th, he had decided this was going 15 rounds, and Terrell was going to feel every one of them. By the 15th, Terrell was bleeding from both eyes, his nose, his mouth, swinging at a man he could barely locate. He never went down. When the final bell rang, the Astrodome went quiet, in the way it does when a crowd has watched something they're not sure they were meant to see. The scorecards read 148 to 138, 148 to 137, 148 to 133. Unanimous, and it wasn't close.
By George Chavallo scoring to Ali. And according to George, Ali has won 13 rounds, lost 1. 1 was even. Let's wait for the verdict of the officials as this reporter gets up into the ring to talk with the winner. Ernie, I wonder if you'd come over here for just a moment. Well, I've lost the earphone and it doesn't matter. I'm going to trust we're on mic and viewing those cameras. You know you've lost this fight.
One more fight remained for Ali, Zora Fali, in March. And then the government stripped his title and his license for refusing the draft. 3.5 years of his prime gone. Years later, Ali said he was never really angry, that he didn't actually care what Terrell called him, and that the whole grudge was mostly about selling the fight and building his image. Whether you believe that is up to you.